some exercises in the slides that you can do and follow along. In the chat, I've posted the live slides link, so you can follow the slides as and when I'm showing the slides. And let me quickly share my screen. Just a minute. Now, can you see my screen?
Me, not yet.
Not yet. Or maybe I can do this and this works better.
Please feel free to make questions on the chat on YouTube or here on Jitsi. Now we
Yeah.
can see your screen, Bhoomika.
Okay, perfect.
Good luck.
So thank you. So I'm Bhoomika. I'm a co-organizer of PyLadies Amsterdam, and we believe in trying to bridge the gender gap in tech. And our approach is by upskilling people and teaching them Python in a more practical sense, such that they can apply it to their real life. The link to these slides and the live slideshow is also on the chat, so feel free to open it and follow along. There are a few exercises in the middle, so then you can also try something out like hands-on. And the link to the compiler is also in the chat. And I've put a poll there to see how many people have some experience in Python. So you can just say how if you have any experience in Python. This is just to get an idea of how much experience people have. Is my screen still shared?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to jump right in. It's a beginner session.
Is on.
As we are waiting for Bhoomika to come back, so please let's wait a couple of minutes. Sorry about that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Yeah, for some reason my camera and my audio turned off. For those in the meeting, please do not do anything with the controls. I think someone blocked me or something like that happened, and I was sharing my screen, so I'm not sure what happened. I'm going to share my screen again quickly. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see it very well.
Okay. And just to check, where was I cut off? Was I there for the contents?
No, we have not seen anything.
Okay. So I'm going to keep this tutorial as concise as possible. And we are from, I'm a co-organizer of PyLadies Amsterdam. We believe in trying to bridge the gap in tech, the gender gap in tech. And our approach is through upskilling and helping people with the skills to learn Python and to program. And yeah, we hope to teach you all a bit of Python in this session. The slides, the live share of these slides, the link for the live share of these slides is posted on the chat in Jitsi, so feel free to follow along as and when I'm sharing the slides. There are also live exercises, and the online compiler link is also in the chat, so you can go through that as well. And I'm going to go through a bit of a background of Python, then we go into variables and lists, operators, string operations, a little more complicated constructs like conditions and loops. Then we go into functions and then dictionary and tuples. There are exercises for almost every part, so then you get some hands on and you can jump in right with the code. And feel free to ask questions at any point in the Jitsi chat, on the YouTube chat. You can also unmute yourself on Jitsi and ask a question, but don't let those questions clog your mind. So I'll start off with a quick introduction of Python. So to give a quick background, Python is very multi-purpose. So people use it for everything from data analysis using pandas and scikit-learn to web development to user interface development to scripting. So it's used for a wide variety of purposes. And this is enabled by its huge set of libraries, which allow you to do anything and everything possible. I've also seen Python being used for text translation and transcripting and whatnot. So if you can find a library for it, that's all you need. It's object oriented, so it's based on objects and inheritance and abstraction, but those are concepts that you don't need to fully get to understand Python. It's interpreted, which means that each line is compiled one at a time, and if you make a change and run it, then you will see the output immediately, which is very good to learn a programming language. And as you will see when we jump into the code, there's a high focus on readability and productivity. And the aim of the language to keep is to keep it as simple as possible. And that's why I call it a concise language. And to really focus on the task and not get lost in the details of the language. So it's a very easy language to learn, and it is one of my all time favorite programming languages. And this is one of the worldwide surveys that's conducted every year. And you can see that Python has a very high usage, about 30% of the top 10, and that's already big. And this is mainly, like I mentioned, because it's used for such a wide variety of purposes and it's extremely easy to use. So I hope you're excited to learn it. This was a quick background, and now we dive right into the language. So if you have learned a programming language before, then you will be aware of the Hello World program, which is usually the first program you learn for any language. So in the slides, the live view, there's a copy button, so you can copy the code, you can view it. So just check out the link in the chat and you can follow along live. So I'm going to quickly copy this and put it in the online compiler. Can you also see the online compiler screen?
No.
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 Okay, then let me maybe also move this the compiler screen to the other tab. Yeah. Now can you see the compiler screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to quickly copy this program and just paste it here. And when I run it, it says hello world. So it's the simplest program, but in my experience of learning programming languages, the first language I learned was Java, and the hello world program for Java was 10 lines. And this one is extremely simple. You just tell the compiler to print hello world, and that's it. So you can see how much it's focused on readability and productivity, and they really the aim is really to do away with all the technical part of it and keep it as simple as possible. So you can also go back to the slides, copy this, and put it in the compiler and run it yourself. There are some exercises, so you can also wait until that if you want, but feel free to run the code as and when we go along. So this was the very first basic program, Hello World, and then we go into variables and types. Variables are just as it is with other programming languages. So they used to store a value. Here I have a variable 1, which has the value 1, a variable name 2, which has the value 2. And with the variables, you can do different operations. You can add variables, subtract variables, print them. So in Python, you have three main types. You have numbers, which can be integers, that is whole numbers, just 1, 2, 3, without a decimal point. And you can have floating point numbers, which are with decimal points. So 2.5, 2.6, anything with a decimal point is a floating point number. Then we have strings, which are it's a text, it's any form of text is called a string. And you have null, which is just the empty variable. And I'm going to quickly copy this as well and paste it in the IDE. And when I run this, so I have first created a variable 1, which is called 1, which has the value 1, a variable 2 with the value 2. I add these three, and when I print the variable 3, I get the value of 1 plus 2. And then I try an operation with strings where I call a string hello, name it hello, give it the value hello, world with the value world, and I try to I create another third variable hello world, which adds the value of hello and world variables. And you can see that this has the value hello world. So it's a very simple program to show you how to create variables, store them, and you do not have to declare the type of the variable. You just have to give it a value, and Python will figure out the type of the variable in the backend by itself. And that makes it very easy because you do not have to take care of the data types or any of those jargons. The only thing to keep in mind is that Python does not allow you to mix numbers and strings. So I cannot do hi is equal to 1 plus hello. So if I try to run this now, then it's going to give me an error. Yeah, so it says unsupported types for int and string. So I cannot mix integer, any numbers and strings, which makes sense. What would 1 plus hello even mean? So that's the only thing you have to keep in mind. The rest Python takes care of for you. So this is quick introduction into variables and types, and we look at one more type of variables, which is lists. Um, it is similar to arrays, but you can make it heterogeneous. So an array is a collection of items of the same kind. So if you want to have a list of 10 students, then instead of declaring 10 different variables, you make one variable and you give it all these values. In the case of Python, you have lists, where you can give it different kinds of values. So I create a list and I give it an integer value. I add a string value to it so I can have different types in the same list. And colors is an example of an array where I'm just giving it the same kind of value. So I'm going to copy this and also put it in the ID. You can also do this along with me as I'm doing. So I print the value of my list of 1. So you need to remember here that Python always starts indexing its lists and arrays with 0. So it's a 0 index language. So the first item is always index 0. The second item is 1 and so forth. So when I print my list of 1, it prints the second element. And if I just print my list, then it gives you 1 and hello is the second element, which has an index 1. Similarly, for the list colors, when I print colors of 1, it gives me the second element. And something that's very interesting in Python that I really like because I haven't seen it in a lot of other programming languages is that you can slice the list elements and you can say, I want everything from index 2 up to index 4. And here it does not include the last element. So this will give me index 2 and index 3, which would be the third and the fourth element. So it gives me blue and green. And I can just print this. And if I print this out, then, oh, sorry, that was a typing error. So when I print this out, I get blue and green, which is the index 2 and index 3. So you can do this. You can also do something like if I don't give the beginning index, then it takes it to be the first one. So then it gives me all the elements. I can also skip the last one, in which case it will take it all the way to the end. So it takes everything from the first index to the end. So you can do a lot of these kind of operations by just slicing, and you don't have to run it and iterate through a loop every time. And I think that's very powerful when you want to do data operations and work with huge sets of data. So these are two types of data that we have in Python, and you can do basic operations on it. So you can do addition, multiplication, subtraction, division. Addition is with the plus sign, multiplication is with a star, division with a slash. You can also run a modulus operation, which will give you the remainder. The power operator is with two stars, so this will give you 5 to the power 2. And also with strings, you have some operations, so you can add strings like we did in the very beginning with the operators. You can also multiply strings. So if I say hello into 10, then it just gives me 10 hellos, essentially. And you can also add lists. So I can take this list and add it to this list and get a new list with everything. So I'm going to quickly copy this and run this. So yeah, these are all valid operations. I haven't printed the outputs of everything, but you can also um, multiply lists and get the same list. So if I print 1, 2, 3 into 3, then it gives me 1, 2, 3 three times. And I can maybe also print this, print all numbers. So this would give me the first array, that's odd numbers, plus the second array, which is even numbers. So it's very easy to do these operations and try out these operators. So I think I have talked quite a bit. So I will give you a break and let you try out some things. So there's a quick exercise, and it's a very simple exercise where you finished eating a bill at a restaurant. You have received a bill which costs 44.5 euros, dollars, whatever currency you want to use. And the tax at the restaurant is 6.75%. And you have to calculate the tip. And the tip should apply on the cost plus the tax. So you can write a quick program to calculate the tip and apply it to the overall task. So yeah, I'll give you maybe 5 minutes to try this out. Open up the online compiler, write a quick program. I would imagine it would be something between 2 to 5 lines. So yeah, give it a shot and let me know if you have any questions, how you go with it. And I'll check the chat in the meantime to see if there are any questions. The session is being recorded and all the exercises are also there. So yeah, we have a 5 minute break till 6:25. You can try out the exercises and I will also maybe share the screen instead. So you can see the exercise, open up the online compiler and just go for it. I'm going to put this. Sorry. I will put these links again in the chat so they don't get lost. And yeah, I have shared the links again in the chat and you can just follow along. Why is my screen not being shared? Second. Yeah, okay, perfect. Now you can see my screen. You have another 3 minutes. Open up a compiler and try it out. The links are all in the chat. If you have any questions now, you can also unmute and let me know. And yeah, good luck with it. And I also see that about 67% of you have some experience. And yeah, so it's, I think, 3:1 approximately. So this shouldn't be a very tough exercise, hopefully. So good luck and yeah, give it a shot. You can look at percentage as maybe multiplying with, so 15% would be multiplying with 0.15. So that's a quick tip. So you can look at as percentage as a multiplication with a decimal, and that makes it very simple. And again, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat, unmute. One, I will show the solution in a bit so you get a better idea, but just take a minute or two to try it out. Okay, I think you got the right value and it's approximately the same. The tax is a bit high in this case somehow, but I just took very random values. And I will quickly jump to the editor, and so maybe you can declare the cost as 44.5, and then tax is what percentage? 6.75. So then it would be 0.675 into cost, and the tip would be 0.15 times the cost plus tax. So you can also use brackets here to say that I want to. One way to do it would also be maybe have overall as cost plus tax, and then I can say 15% of overall, but I can also use a bracket and calculate the same overall. And then as a last step, I print the tip. Um, yeah, I can print the tip, or I can also print tip plus overall. So when I run this, the tip is 11.18 something, and the overall that I'm paying is tip plus overall. Yeah, so it's tip plus tax plus cost. So totally I'm paying 85. It's not a real scenario, it's just a made up scenario. So um yeah,
I
so you
think
can ignore.
it was just missing a zero for the tip. So you
Sorry.
divided the tip. You divided by you just missed a zero on the tip. On the yeah
Oh,
yeah
yeah.
the tax. Sorry.
Yeah, all right, that's correct. So it should be 0.0675. Thank you for catching that. So yeah, then you have a tip of €7, and then you pay totally €54, which is also what I see some of you entered in the chat. So good job. You have written your first or second Python program, and I hope it was not too complex. And you can also do what Frauke put in the chat, where you can just put everything into a single line. I try to break it into steps so that it's easier to follow, but the beauty of Python is you can put brackets and put everything in one line as well. So you can make it really compact, you can broaden it, do whatever suits you. Now we move on to strings and how to format strings. So string formatting has three ways to go about it. One is where what we did with the previous thing, where we just say print the value of the variable. And other ways, if I want to print this value very nicely and I want to say this is this many years old, or I want to insert the value of the string along with the variable, then I use the percentage operator in my text, and I say percentage %s signifies a string, percentage %f is for floating points, percentage %d is for integers. And if I want to show only the first one or two decimal points of a variable, then I say percentage point. Maybe if I want to show just two, then I say percentage point %2f, which will round off the variable, which will only show the first two decimal points of the variable. And then you can use this along with your variables, and you can print different kinds of strings. I'm going to copy this and just show you quickly. So I have a variable called John, which is string. I have an integer variable, and I want to say John is 23 years old, but I want to still use the variable so that if I change this to 24, then the string also changes accordingly. And then I use the percentage %s and these operators, and I get this. And similarly for a list, you use percentage %s and you use the list. One other way to do this could also be print, um, and then I just have the variable name. So name plus is plus, and then I have the second variable age plus years old. So I can also just concatenate the string with the variable name. No, oh, right. So sorry. Name. So instead of having plus, I confuse the syntax between languages sometimes. So yeah. So if I use commas, it concatenates it in print. So I get essentially the same output, but these are just different ways of string formatting. And for me personally, I like this method better, but some people prefer this because it gives you more control over the variable types. But again, that's a personal choice. And the idea is that you should be able to format your strings and display variable values inside. So just as a quick check-in to try this out, sorry, and we have one more quick set of string operations. So with strings, you can print the length of the string. You can check the index at which a string occurs. You can count the number of times a certain string occurs within another string. You can slice them, reverse them, start, stop. So there are a lot of functions that do all of this for you, thankfully, and you don't have to do anything on your own. So in this case, I start with defining a random string. I could not think of what it should be, so I just put what should the string be. And you can print the length of the string. So I've first started with printing the length, and I use length of the string. So the function is maybe one thing I really like about Python is the functions are very simply named. So there's no complication, and a length function is just called length. So it's very easy to remember. And the length of the string, I use length of s. S is the name of the string, and that gives me the length. And I can also say I want to find the first index at which the character A occurs in the string, and this can be done with the index function. I can also count how many times A occurs, the character A or bigger string occurs. So I say s dot count A, and here it says A occurs once, which is true for this string. I could also do this for E, and then since E occurs a lot more times, you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 E's. So then you can count a string, a character. And you can also slice the string a bit. So I want to say maybe this is similar to what we did with the list, where I want to say from the beginning to the fifth one, or the fifth to the 10th one, or just the 12th character, or there's also a start, stop, and there's this, sorry, um, there's a start, stop, and a step. So I can increase stepwise. And yeah, so if I want every odd index, then I start with the beginning, start with the second one, and then I go all the way to the end and I select every second index. So I think, yeah, so the output of that is this string, which makes no sense, but it has every second character. And you can convert the entire string to uppercase, which is what we did here, the entire string to lowercase. You can check if a string starts with a certain character. I will explain if loops in a bit. So if that is a bit confusing, just hold on to that for a bit. And I can also split each word of the string and show the output one at a time into, here I've split it into an array. So if I split every word, using the split function, then I get a list of strings. So these are a few string operations, and the names are very simple. So if you want to split, it's just the function's called split. If you want an index, it's called index. If you want to check if it starts with, it's called start with. So it's very obvious naming. So it's also easy to remember. And here is a bit stop. We have another very quick exercise where from the output of the previous function, we had earlier only printed the balance, and we want to print the total amount of the bill, but using string formatting. So you say hello John Doe, or you can put your own name there, and your current balance is the amount. So I'm going to give you maybe till 6:40 to quickly try this out, and then I will show the output. So yeah, jump in, try this out, and the slides are also shared, so you can check, go back and forth, look at the outputs. And if you have any questions, I'm right here. So drop it in the chat or unmute and go for it. And good luck. It's probably one or two lines added to the previous one, so it shouldn't take too long. I also see that there's some activity in the chat and the answers partly been revealed, but try not to use that and try it out yourself. I think that's enough time. So I'm just going in the interest of time because we also have longer exercises. Then I'm just going to quickly print this out. No percentage. Yes, your yes, percentage F. I'm using 0.2F because I just want to show. I only want to show the first two decimal points. So I'm going to put name and overall here. And when I run this, Yes. Yeah, I think there's something wrong with my syntax, but I will figure that out a bit later. But I hope you all had some success with printing it in the right format.
It
And
looks
now,
like you have an extra comma. Is one of the suggestions,
yeah, maybe this works.
and right before the percentage sign.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is.
So removing the comma before the percentage sign.
Okay, this. Um, then, oh, yeah, perfect. So, yeah, just prints this out in this format, and yeah, I will post the answers in these slides a bit later for those of you who want to follow it along. And now we jump to the next part, which is conditions and loops. And conditions are where I'm using true and false values to evaluate something. So this is in this example, I take a case where I say that if there are more people than there are cars, so if we're going out on a trip and if we have more people than cars, then we should take the cars. If we have more cars than we have people, then we should take the cars. Otherwise, we should not take the cars, or we can't decide. So for conditionals, we have the if, elif, else loop. So if is always followed by a condition where I'm checking if one value is greater than another, equal to another. So to check for equality between values, you have a double equal to sign. And for not equal to, it's not equal to. So it's exclamation equal to. And I will come to the other operators in a bit. So I'm going to quickly copy this, and so here I have two names, and I have a name Ram, and if the name is in this array, then I print your name is either this or this, and I have another condition where I have a number of cars and I have a number of people. So if the number of cars is more than the number of people, then I print we take the cars. Elif checks the next. So if this condition is true, then it goes into the if. Else, we check for another condition. So elif is essentially else if. If the number of cars is less than the number of people, then we say we don't take the cars. Else is the last most thing that comes if. So in case this is false and this is false, then it comes to else. And we say we can't decide. And here I'm just trying to show true and false. So if I say not false, then it's true. And when I run this, you can see that since name is in this array, it says your name is either here or here. Since the number of cars greater is greater than the number of people, it prints we should take the cars, and not false is true. So then we do that. Some things to keep in mind here are the indentation here. So if the the statement following the if is always indented one to the right. So if I remove this, it does not go into the if loop and it says there's an error. So you always need to indent it. The statement that is part of your if loop always has to be indented. Here, if I want to do two different things in case the condition is true, then I can also have two statements, but both of them have to be indented. second thing to do. And then because both of them are indented after the if, it will print both of these. So the important thing to remember is that the indentation is very important. It can be two spaces, it can be a tab, but there has to be indentation that's followed similarly throughout your program. And yeah, and then the indentation is important. You can use not, there's in, equal to, not equal to. So I can also make this if cars equal to people. So this will check if the number of cars is equal to the number of people. And in this case, the number of cars is not equal to the number of people. The number of cars is not less than the number of people. So it ends up in the else loop. I can also do not equal to, in which case the first condition is satisfied, and then it says we should take the cars. So yeah, it's a bit of playing around with the loop with the conditions, but the main thing to remember is you can have conditions based on true and false values and comparisons, and this is using the if, elif, else loops. And another very interesting thing that I like with Python is the for and the while loops are very simple. So the loop is used to iterate through a set of values. It can be in an array. It can also be if you just want to run it 6 times. Excuse me. So the for loop, so here we are defining um, a list with a set of primes, and then I can go through each one and print each one. Going through each one and printing it is quite simple, but if you want to do more operations, then the loops are very advantageous. I can also create an empty list, and I say for I. I is just a random variable name, and the range function is used to give everything in a range from 0 up till 6, not including 6. And then for each of these values, I append or add values to the elements array. I can also do this for x in range whatever, and then I can give intermediate values of the range. And essentially, I can use the loops to iterate over a sequence of numbers. I can use it to iterate over a list, and so on. So I will quickly run this code. And here you can see in the output that first it prints all the values in the primes array, and then it prints all the values in the range 3 to 6. So that's 3, 4, 5. It never includes the value of the last of the upper bound basically. And yeah, so this is the for loop. We also have another loop which is the while loop, and in case of the for loop, it's always good to iterate over something, but sometimes we don't know how long we want to do it, but we know that we want to stop when this happens. So that's when the while loop comes into the picture. So I can say that we keep going on with the session until we reach 7:30. So I know when to stop, but I don't know how many times to iterate. So that's when you use the while loop. And here I say I have a count variable, and I say until the count variable is less than 5, I keep incrementing it. And this is the for loop, but with a more complicated syntax. And here there is a continue statement, which will, in this case, I'm looking at all numbers up to 10, and I want to check if a number is even. If it's even, I don't print it. So I check how if it's even by checking the modulus for 2. So if the modulus of 2 is equal to 0, that means it's divisible by 2. Then the continue statement will skip this iteration of the loop. Otherwise, we print it. And there is also a break statement which will break out of the loop at a given condition. So let me show you this code quickly. So first we have a while loop which increments the counter every time and prints it up till it's 5. So you can see the output here, it prints 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it stops when it's 5. And here I want to print only the odd numbers. So yeah, I check whenever the value is divisible by 2. I don't do anything, I just continue, and then I print the rest of the values. And if I were to change this to break, then in this case, the minute it finds the first value that's divisible by 2, it will end the loop. And that's about it. So if I run this, then as it for one, yeah, I'm checking a range of 10. So then blah blah blah. If range of 10, yeah. So it should print 1 here. Yeah. X for X and it starts with 0, of course. So then make it from 1 to 10. And here you can see that it starts with 1. For 1, the modulus is not 2, so then it prints 1. As soon as it reaches the first even number, it breaks out and it ends the loop. So you can skip certain conditions in a loop, you can break out of a loop, and you can do multiple things with loops. And one quick thing that we need for the next exercise, which is following the slide, is how you take input from the user. So this is just using the input function, and you ask a question, what is your name, what is your age, and then the value can be stored in a variable. So I will quickly run this. So you can say username is input of the question, my age is input of this. And you can also see, so here it asks me what is your name, and it waits till I give it an input. So once I give it an input, it runs the next statement, and it asks me what is your age. So if I say 45, then it saves both these values in variables, and that's how you take user input. So keeping all this in mind, and for you to apply all of this, we have a quick exercise, and this is a very simple exercise which is called Pig Latin, and it's a game where you take any word as an input and you move the first letter of the word all the way to the end and add AY. So if it begins with a vowel, you just add way in the end. So Python becomes Python, since it does not start with a vowel, then it becomes Python. P is moved to the end and AY. And object starts with a vowel, so then it just becomes object way. So you check if the first letter is a vowel or not, and based on that, you decide to do either of these things. So yeah, the steps you need to do is ask the user to input a word, convert it to Pig Latin, and display the results. So maybe we can take up to 7 to do this quick exercise, and yeah, give it a shot. And I'm also checking the chat, so in the meantime, feel free to ask questions. And yeah, good luck. W is not a vowel. The vowels are A, E, I, O, U. And if any word starts with that, then you add W, A, Y in the end. So for object, it just becomes object way. If it's apple, it would become apple way. So the vowels, I'll just put it here, or maybe I can just add it to the slides. A, A, E, I, O, U. So those are your vowels. Let me see if I can also quickly add it. I would have to stop sharing it, so I'm just going to continue. So yeah, give it a shot, and I'm here for any questions. You have 3 minutes more. Since we don't have any questions, I was typing out the answer in the meantime on another tab, and I will quickly run through all of it. So I start with inputting a string. I ask the user to enter a word, and then I check if S of 0 is the first letter, if it is in A, E, I, or U, if it is in either of these, then the answer is the string plus way. Otherwise, answer is string starting from the second letter all the way to the end plus the first letter of the string plus AY. And then I print the answer in the end. And I run this. So if I enter object, then it gives me object way. And I'm going to run it again. I check with Python. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And yeah, this is the basic program where we check the first vowel, check the first letter if it's a vowel, or if it's not a vowel, we have two different conditions and we do this. And we print out the answer, and this works for both cases. Any questions here so far? Mm, okay, I think that was a simple but quite creative exercise to flex your brains. And now we move on to the next concept, which is functions. And a function is basically a way to divide your code into blocks. Let's say if I want to maybe add two numbers multiple times, instead of writing the code for that 10 times, I can write it as a function and then call that function again and again. So it's a way of making your code into blocks and avoiding repetition of the code. And another function could be maybe if you want to check if a number is a prime number or not, and maybe you want to do this multiple times in your program. So you define it as a function in one place, you call the function, and that's about it. And to define a function, we use the def keyword followed by the name of the function, and then there's a colon, and after that, in with an indent, we put all the contents of the function. So a function can take input parameters. So you can say, in case of just printing hello there, you don't need any input from the user. But if you want to add two specific numbers, then you can take those inputs as A and B, and then you return the sum of these two numbers, and then it can be printed out. And to call a function, you just give the name followed by the values of the parameter. And in this case, for a function that doesn't return anything or have any input arguments, you just call it by the name. And then you can do multiple things with it. So I will copy this code quickly and run it. And so it first calls the function my function, which prints hello there. And then I'm inputting the sum of two numbers, 10 and 15. The function returns the sum of these two numbers to the variable x, and then I have printed x. And here I could also have this as any two numbers. So the values that inputs are not fixed. It really is the user's choice. So this is quick introduction to functions. And we have another very quick exercise where you're looking for twin prime numbers, and twin prime numbers are a pair of prime numbers with a difference of 2 between them. So 3 and 5 are twin primes, 5 and 7, 11 and 13, 29 and 31. So any two prime numbers that have a difference of 1. And as a user, you take, given any two numbers A and B, you have to check if they are twin primes. So to do this, we create a function that checks for prime numbers. And then we check for the two numbers if or not they are prime numbers using the function. And then if they're both prime numbers, then we check if they are twin prime numbers. And to check if it's a prime number or not, a prime number is only divisible by itself. And basically, if you check the modulus or the remainder of all the numbers up to the prime number with itself, then it should return nothing. So we can maybe take 5-10 minutes for this, and I will work along on the prime number function with you to give you an idea. So give it a shot. So I'm defining a number, prime number of x. So x is the number I'm checking. for I in range of up till x. So I'm checking everything from 2 up to x. And here I check if x modulus I equal to 0. That is if x is divisible by anything. Then I return true. Some indentation here. Else, oh sorry, here I return false. So this is the prime number function. So essentially I'm checking for every number from 2 up till the number. And if it is divisible by any of these numbers, then it has a factor. And that means it's not a prime number. So then I return that it's not a prime number. And if it has, and this comes out of the loop. So maybe another way to do this would be, so after it has run through the whole loop, and if it has not returned false, that means it's run through every condition in the loop. Then it's checked for all values and it's not a prime number, so we return true. So this is the prime number function, and now you can work on the rest of the code quickly. It's a bit of a tricky function, so I just put that in there, and this is the exercise. So we have created a function that checks for prime numbers, and we need to create another function called twin primes, which checks first if the two numbers are prime numbers and if they are twin primes, and returns yes, true or false. And yeah, maybe I'll give you 2 more minutes, 3 more minutes for this, and then we can continue. Or yeah, maybe in a minute we continue. So maybe I won't give away the complete answer for this in the interest of time, because we have about 20 minutes left and I still want to cover 1 or 2 topics, but I did type out the prime numbers function, so that should already give you an idea, and then you just define a function called twin primes, which takes an A and B, and then you check if prime of A and prime of B. So you check both of these, and A minus B equal to 2. That is, the difference is 2. Then you return true, else you return false. So yeah, it's quite a simple function once you have the prime function. So we have two functions, and then we call the twin prime function, which calls the prime function. So yeah, that's the basic answer. And yeah, okay, we don't have any questions in the chat, so I will proceed to the next concept. We have just one or two more concepts that are a little simpler because I know it went a bit in a peak now. So I'll introduce those. We have one exercise and then we just have time for questions and trying out things. So another very important data type in Python is dictionaries, which are similar to arrays, but you have specifically named keys instead of indexes. So in an array, it's phone book of 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever. But in a dictionary, you're giving names to the indexes. So then I'm giving phone book of John is equal to this, phone book of Jack is equal to this, phone book of Jill is equal to this, and so on. And that's how you create a dictionary. And we can maybe just copy this and put it in the editor. So we define a dictionary where we give index and value pairs. And then to iterate over all the phone numbers in the directory or to iterate over all the values, I say phone name and number in phonebook.items. So phonebook.items fetches all the items in two values. So it returns two values, name and number. And then I can print the name and the number. And then I can also check if the index John is or is not in phone book. So if John not in phone book, then I say John is not listed. And otherwise, I could also remove a value from the dictionary using the delete function, where I say delete phone book of whatever value. And I can also remove the topmost value using the pop function, or I can remove any value where I say phonebook.pop and the index name. So that will also remove a value. You can also delete it, you can also pop it. And when I run this, so first it runs through all the elements in the dictionary, and then yeah, and since John is in the phone book, then it deletes phone book of John. Maybe I can just print. No? Yeah, so first it prints everything, and then I I check if John is not in the phone book. Then it says it's not listed. Otherwise, it deletes John. And then when I print it, you can see that there are only 3 entries left, and you can also do that with pop. So essentially, you can create a dictionary with key value indexes. You can iterate over them, remove values, add values, and so on and so forth. I can also add a value where I say phone book of Bhoomika equal to 8, and then I can print phone book. And, okay, right, sorry, I think it's called phonebook.append. I don't remember the exact function, but yeah, there you can just add values to it. I think I remember. So phone book of Bhoomika. Yeah. So here I'm adding phone book with my name, and then I'm printing the phone book. So Also very simple to add it using the index name that you want to add. So that's about dictionaries. It's used a lot in data analysis, and I think it's also a very important concept to remember. So I'm just introducing it here. And this is the last exercise, and then we have one more slide. So just hang in there. I'm going to give you maybe 3-4 minutes. And so we are looking, we have a list. Content number keyword and display in the form of an array, right? So we have a keyword list, which is that whole list, and then we're counting the occurrences of each of the keywords and display it as a key value pair. So going to give you 3-4 minutes, and then we just go to the next slide. You have 2 more minutes, so okay. I hope you were able to solve this one. And we have one more quick concept that we look at, and then we just have the floor open for questions. So one last concept I would like to introduce is tuples. They're similar to lists, but they're not mutable. So um, a list is just 1, 2, 3, and my list dot append is you can add to the list. And with the tuple, instead of using square brackets, we use round ones, and that becomes a tuple. But when you try to add to a tuple, it generates an error. So I will run this quickly. And when I try to append to the tuple, it gives me an error saying tuple cannot be appended. And if I comment this, comments are using a hash sign in Python, like you also all know. And then it allows me to continue. But tuples are just sets of values that cannot be muted, that cannot be changed. And this is used a lot in data science where we want to maybe save the headings as tuples, or if we have some values that we want to make sure cannot be changed as tuples. So that was the last concept. I don't have an exercise for it, but I hope you still got the hang of it. And with that, we have the floor open to questions and a few resources for you to try out. And I hope the exercises were not too difficult to try. And I will add the solutions to these exercises in the slides and post it maybe in a day or two. So if you check the slides in 2-3 days, you will see the solutions. The slides are also on the GitHub, and the link to the GitHub is on the meetup. So that's all the information is connected to the meetup. Okay, looks like we don't have any questions. So either I went too fast or it was very clear. You're welcome. And this is a very basic introduction. There are a lot of more concepts. So just pick a topic and you will find tutorials online for it. You can also refer to the resources I've put in. They're very good resources. A lot of some of the exercises and sample codes are from there. So go for it. Feel free to share the slides, distribute them, and I hope you had some luck with the advanced sessions. We do have some advanced sessions for different topics on the from PyLadies, not an advanced Python session specifically yet. Because after this, once you get the basics of the language, then it's more use case dependent on you find a library and uses and pick a use case and do that. So if you check out the PyLadies meetup or the GitHub or the website, you will find links for most of these. All the sessions are recorded. So we have beginner sessions to topics, advanced sessions to topics. All of them are recorded. All the materials are also online. So you can check those out. You can follow the video recordings as well. And if you have requests for more topics that you want to see sessions about or want to give sessions about, feel free to reach out to one of us. And we are always looking for speakers. So we're always looking for speakers and topic suggestions. So if you have requests, we're always open to those. And in this session, I used an online compiler to keep it really simple for beginners, but it's also very easy to install Python and run the same on your local machine. So you can also try that as the next step and try to run these more irrespective of what platform the code stays the same. So that was the idea of picking the I don't see any questions so far. So I think with 5 minutes to spare, we close the session. And I hope you learned a lot. And good luck. Have a good evening. And hope to see you at future sessions.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining. Have a good evening.